video, we'll be adapting a real truck shifter to work in a simulator. For the project, we'll need a truck shifter that has electronic switches inside. This particular shifter has toggle switches for the range and splitter on the front and side, and a third momentary switch for an engine brake. As an electronics interface between the shifter and a PC, we can use a basic USB joystick encoder. These are easy to use, plug and play, and without any coding required. The joystick encoder kits also come with all the included wires and a USB cable. The first thing we need to do is to work out which wire is connected to which switch. Carefully open the shifter by using a small flathead screwdriver to lift off the cover. We can see the top switch is a momentary button. This has connections wired on the normally open and normally closed terminals. We only need the normally open function, so when a button is pressed, it activates an assigned function in the simulator. We can check and confirm the correct terminals by setting a multimeter to test continuity. By touching the probes on the terminals, we can see the black and yellow wires are active, normally closed, without pressing the button. The blue and yellow wires are the normally open connection we are looking for. These are only active when pressing the button. The middle switch is set up to act as a toggle switch, with the green and purple wires connected to the outer, normally closed terminals. The bottom switch is also set up the same, and only active when it's in the up position. This is connected to the red and white wires. There is a resistor on the bottom switch that we do not require for this project. So with a pair of cutters, snip as close as possible to the terminals to remove the resistor. The wires are then aligned into the shifter and the top cover is reinstalled. We now know the correct wire colours for each switch and can begin preparing the connections to the USB board. Start by cutting the wires to remove the plastic connector at the end of the shifter. With the connector removed, strip the ends of the wires with wire strippers. Note, the black wire is not used, so it is folded back. From the joystick encoder kit, take 3 sets of wires. Then cut off the terminals and strip the ends of each wire. To cover and protect the solder joints, cut 6 pieces of heat shrink. These smaller pieces of heat shrink are placed over the ends of the wires. This now prepares the 3 sets of wires for soldering. Before soldering, cut a larger piece of heat shrink and then place it over the wires coming from the shifter. From the coloured pairs of wires we identified earlier on the switches, solder these into sets of wires from the encoder kit. For example, the first set of wires coming from the momentary button are blue and yellow, so these are soldered to one set of the encoder wires. Continue to solder the other 2 sets of wires for the remaining toggle switches. Once the soldering is complete, we can slide the heat shrink over the solder joints, then apply heat. Then slide the larger piece over all the connections and apply heat. So now we have the sets of wires connected and soldered to each switch. Next, plug the 3 connectors into the USB joystick board. The last thing we will need to do is plug in the USB wires to the board to complete the wiring. The joystick board and wires can be neatly bunched together and placed into a small box if you wish. With the wiring complete, plug the shifter into a USB port on a PC and open the joystick properties. Here we can check and test the shifter is wired correctly. Each individual button numbered 1, 2 and 3 should only light up when pressed or switched on. With all the switches working, we can set up and assign the functions in the truck sim. Once the truck simulator is open, go to the options and controls. At the top, check the generic USB board is shown and selected. Select H shifter for the shifter type. Then scroll down and select the shifter layout and set to range splitter. For the toggle switches, select and assign the front and side switches to shifter toggle 1 and shifter toggle 2. Then it's important to select the box to use switch mode for the shifter toggles. To set up the top momentary button on the shifter, select keys and buttons. This can be set to any other preferred setting or set as an engine brake. To set as an engine brake, scroll down and find the engine brake toggle setting. Then assign by pressing the button on the shifter. We can close off the settings and the shifter is ready to use in the sim. So now we can shift through the gears and see the side toggle is set as a splitter, the front toggle is set as the range selector, and the top button will turn on or off the engine brake. This is an easy way to build and set up a real truck shifter to work for your truck simulator.